Did you know that miscommunication costs U.S. businesses over $2 trillion every year? $2 trillion. That's hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars just leaking out of organizations because of easily avoidable misunderstandings, delays, and lost opportunities. So it might sound extreme, but it happens every day. So imagine your salesperson just sends a quick email out to one of your biggest customers saying, hey, let's revisit pricing next quarter. Now, on the surface, saying let's revisit pricing, it seems like super clear. If your customer interprets that as a threat or assumes that you're going to be raising your prices, they might engage and sign with a competitor. So at that point, it doesn't really matter what the salesperson meant. The deal's gone. And this kind of stuff can happen whether your team's working on new groundbreaking features of your app or whether everyone needs to align on who the feature is actually for, or maybe you're VP and you're presenting a new strategic shift to the entire company, and then you accidentally assume that the key details are obvious. Well, poor communication is a surefire way to crash and burn, but there is a simple solution. The highest performing teams, they don't leave communication a chance. They have built a communication playbook, and a communication playbook contains all the skills they will ever actively train on for every team member. And the return they get is remarkable. Clear direction, fewer roadblocks, and a culture where teams work exceptionally well together. So what exactly is a communication playbook? First, high-performing teams have ditched active listening and opened the door to adaptive listening. Yes, you heard that right. There is a step that goes beyond and above active listening, and it's especially important in the workplace. My amazing colleagues, Megan and Nicole, they developed this methodology after realizing this really critical gap. There were not enough memorable, actionable techniques to help professionals become better listeners in work environments. What exactly is adaptive listening? Let's start by comparing it to active listening. So active listening was first introduced in the 1950s by psychologists when they noticed that patients responded better to therapists who listened a specific way. The classic version of active listening promotes non-judgmental listening skills, and where the goal is simply to just make the person feel heard and make them feel comfortable. And this helps the therapists encourage them, and they start to share things that they normally wouldn't share with anyone. Now, that's going to make perfect sense in a therapy session, but in the workplace, that's not so much helpful at all. So imagine if Gary from accounting, and he's in a panic, and you can see he's in a panic because he has not received his new login details for the new expense report software, and now it's going to delay him getting the checks out. You could nod and be like, oh, I'm so sorry. Wow, sounds like you're frustrated. Or you could actually help him. You could escalate a note to Josh in IT, who you always rely on so often. He always sorts out all your IT issues quickly. Well, this kind of solution-oriented listening is extremely important in work environments. So take Google, for instance. Employees at Google, they're encouraged to learn from each other. And they have this program, it's Googler to Googler Network. And it's this peer-driven system where the employees, they teach each other, mentor each other, guide each other. If a Googler only practiced active listening, oh, sounds like you're frustrated, their colleague might actually not feel heard. And they would not get the help they need from a mentor so that they can advance their career. Being a great listener doesn't mean staying neutral. It means evaluating, offering insight, guiding your colleagues and customers towards solutions when and how they need it. So adaptive listening isn't about passively sitting back, waiting for someone to finish their sentence. It's about helping your organization reach its own momentum and drive its needs. So there's a reason people romantically talk about, oh, we finish each other's sentences. It's a metaphor for a relationship that's in very healthy harmony, where two people, they really just get each other. And it's the same when you and a colleague are bouncing ideas off each other, rapidly shaping new product features, and you're finding exceptional insights together. Of course, there's a difference between being in sync with someone, where you're almost singing the same song, and there's a big difference then cutting them off before they can get their message across. And adaptive listening is about moving forward faster, not shutting people down. So when teams collaborate like this, they connect better, they innovate faster, and they flip and get more done. Adaptive listening is also about knowing when to give feedback and ask questions and when to not. Erin Mayer, who wrote the book called No Rules Rules, it's about Netflix culture, and she put it this way. At Netflix, it's tantamount to being disloyal to the company if you fail to speak up when you disagree with a colleague or have feedback that could be helpful. Now, that's kind of intense for a workplace to consider not speaking up failure. But if you read between the lines here, it's not about active listening. That quote is about adaptive listening. The key phrase in it is feedback that could be helpful. If a manager tells a new hire, I need that report by the end of the day, that's not the time to respond with, well, I'd really rather take the week to set up a new report that's going to be more effective long term. There's no time for that. It's just going to slow things down. But if you say, absolutely, I'm going to get right on it, and before the next report, I want to chat with you about reformatting it for future use. That's the kind of feedback that keeps things moving forward. It leads to a clearer, faster communication. And with 83% of Netflix employees saying they would refer a friend to work there, it's clearly working. Lastly, adaptive listening is all about empathy, not just from speaker to listener, but from listener to speaker too. The pressure is usually on the speaker to deliver something worth listening to. They're expected to create a compelling speech, design an engaging presentation, and keep the audience from checking out halfway through. But what about the listener? Should they just sit back and passively absorb what the speaker's saying? Or should they also show compassion for the speaker and consider what the speaker might need from them so the speaker can reach their goal? Imagine one of your teams, maybe they've worked tirelessly on a proposal and they're finally presenting it to the leadership team. Instead of just accepting their effort as a given, this is a great opportunity for the leaders to express enthusiasm and gratitude by being their best adaptive listeners. At the same time, speakers need to understand that listeners engage in different ways. You might think the CEO is rude for scribbling in the notebook while you're speaking, but what if she's actually taking detailed notes so she can discuss key points with you later? So after extensive research, my team, Nicole and Megan, they identified 4 listening styles. And if everyone in your company understood each other's listening styles and respected their speakers, it would, without a doubt, lead to better understanding and therefore more productivity. But communication comes in 2 parts. While adaptive listening is like your pizza crust, the toppings are how you express a clear and useful message. It's like adding the perfect topping that makes your pizza the chef's special. It's in your message. If it's weak, unclear, self-indulgent, even the best listening will be a terrible lunch. You can and you should help teams improve their ability to hear each other. But it's just as important to ensure what's being said is actually worth listening to. So whether it's one colleague explaining a technical issue to another or a team lead trying to shift a strategy, they need to deliver their message in the best way possible. And there's 3 important tactics to keep in mind here. First is making the audience the hero. The best communicators know when to step out of the spotlight. They understand that their colleague or their customers, not the one speaking, should be the focus. Every presentation, every discussion and pitch should center around how the audience benefits, not just personal anecdotes or jargon. Imagine Janet from the product team. She walks in a meeting with her software developers and she introduces a new feature for the app. And she raves about, oh my God, I love it. This is the best feature. But instead of explaining that customers are asking for it, she talks about her personal experience and how much she would love to see this feature prioritized. What does the developers react like? They're probably like, cool story, Janet. Why does this matter? I'm only going to do what the customers want. But Janet's message would have landed so much better if she started with an empathetic customer-first message. Instead of only talking about herself and what she loves, she could have tried to say something like, our customers are frustrated and they are abandoning our platform right now. And here's how this new feature can cut churn by 50%. She could even bring in real customer feedback and show how important this feature is to the customers and how a similar approach has benefited other companies. But instead, she's like, oh, I love this. This audience-first communication, it brings the whole team together under one single cause. But it's also, second, a great idea to contextualize data. Because let's be honest, like a report full of numbers and spreadsheet, it's not gripping content. Now, obviously, the finance team probably thinks it is. They need reports and budgets and forecasts and projections, and they're like, yeah, this is gripping. But when leadership is sitting through yet another presentation packed with graphs, line charts, endless percentages, are they really taking it all in, or are they just nodding along while mentally preparing for their next meeting? Well, if you want people to listen, data alone is not enough. You need to give it meaning. Take a finance department that's just wrapped up a quarterly review. Instead of simply reporting on Q1 operational costs, what if they told you a story? Imagine they started with something that sounds like this. In Q1, we saved enough money to fund 2 global leadership development programs without increasing our budget. If we continue on this trajectory, we could be looking at fully covering next year's L&D initiatives. Wow. Now leadership isn't just hearing numbers, they're seeing the impact of the numbers. And it doesn't have to be about training programs. Maybe the team even reframes that and puts numbers into a way that is more tangible. So they could say something like, to put this into perspective, that 5% savings is the equivalent of running our New York office for 2 months, the rent, the salaries, everything. Suddenly, the data isn't just a figure on a spreadsheet. It's something that people can grasp and start to care about and even share with others. That's the difference between dumping data on an audience and actually communicating with them. Now, the third tip's about slides. And slides are powerful, and teams need to create slide decks that matter. And we have all been there, sitting in a meeting, staring at a slide with so much overloaded text and numbers. You need a magnifying glass. Just make sense of it. And by the time you've decoded one section of the slide, the presenter already moved on to the next slide. Jeff Bezos hated PowerPoint slides so much, he banned them at Amazon, and he replaced them with 6-page memos. And why? What was his reasoning? That's because most slides are a crutch for bad storytelling, and he had a point. A bad presentation, slides can drain the energy from an otherwise decent meeting, whereas he thought that carefully shaped prose was more effective. Now, I'm convinced that when done right, slides are incredibly more valuable. The best slide decks follow a few simple rules. Each slide focuses on one clear idea. The deck should tell a story, not just list bullets, and it should be visually compelling and clear visuals that amplify the message. Fonts should be readable and skimmable, and the design should use hierarchy really well. It focuses on the message. So think about it this way. If a slide deck was a movie, would you rather watch a well-paced story unfold or read the entire script crammed into 8-point font? Maybe if Bezos had seen a really effective slide deck, he wouldn't have banned them outright. So if your team applies everything that we've talked about today, they'll not only make meetings more engaging, they're going to save you possibly trillions of dollars. Well, maybe not trillions, but they could save you a lot. So where do you find a communication playbook to help you build a great team? At Duarte, we have spent years researching the small nuances that make workplace communication actually work. And we have developed proven methods and techniques that every great team should implement. If you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up so others can find it too, and hit subscribe if you want more insights on how to train your teams for better communication. And I hope to see you again soon.